Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Roll and Reflect podcast, the podcast where we bring you insights from behind the tabletop and beyond the box. I'm your host, Devon.
And I'm Mark.
And I am feeling a little bit spooky today because
Yes,
we are talking about Horrified.
Oh, Horrified, yeah.
I don't know. This might be a horrifying episode, and if you're not a horror freak, not be the episode for you. But before we get into it, we are going to have a reflection question from Bryce and Jessica of the Game and Drink Connoisseurs podcast. Go ahead and take it away.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Bryce and Jessica from the Game and Drink Connoisseurs podcast, and we have a reflection question for you.
Since today's episode is about the spooky game Horrified, we wanted to ask, do you guys do anything to set up the atmosphere when you're playing a spooky game like Horrified?
Okay, Mark, so do you have anything to set the mood, or do you set the atmosphere up whenever you're playing games such as like spooky games?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And not just spooky games, but like dungeon crawls and things as well. But obviously music is a key thing. Sound effects when I can get my hands on some. Also, where we generally play games is upstairs in our dining room, which we have a game theory table. And there we have a huge TV behind the table, so we can throw apps and do various settings and different types, especially for like Dark Tower, we throw the app up there, right? But for spooky things, we might set up a castle in the background, spooky atmosphere.
Like on the TV in the background?
On the TV, yeah. Yeah, all kinds of stuff like that. And then something for like the night cage. We have those little electronic candles, and we dim the lights. And I like just in general games where you can dim the lights and set the atmosphere. Because again, for me, gaming is experiential, right? So I love any kind of tactile / sensory stuff that I can add. I am all about it.
Yeah, and you said you talked about experience, and that's the same thing with me. Is like my core group, every time I try to dim the lights and something, they don't like it. So for me, I can't get the experience I want. Every time I can, with my wife and I, we always have like nice music in the background. But if it's whenever we play Thunder Road specifically,
Yeah.
I have to have the soundtrack from Mad Max. I mean,
Yes.
you just have to, right?
There's so many games like that in general. Even if we don't set like a spooky atmosphere, right? We always theme the game night to music of some type. Maybe it's just universally soundtracks from movies, or, like you said, for Thunder Road, for Gotta Roll, that Mad Max soundtrack for sure. Just any numerous type of things for. So yeah, I'm all about setting the atmosphere.
Yeah, and I know this is very much like this is a hot topic for some people, and
Yeah.
I didn't think it would be, but some people really do not like listening to music or having anything in the background.
No distractions.
No distractions. And
Yep.
I kind of understand, because it does get distracting. For me, like whenever my buddy comes over to play, we always have lo-fi going on in the background.
Yeah.
Because there's no lyrics. So it's just like music going
Yep.
on.
Yep.
Because otherwise it's dead sound, like dead silence, and I'm just
I
like,
don't do well with that. Even way back to when I was a kid and doing homework, I had to have music or
Yes.
TV on or something. It was just too quiet. It drove me crazy.
Yeah, and that's why I always have fans on. So if you ever hear a fan in the background,
Yes.
that's why. Because I go crazy otherwise.
I
But
gotta
yeah,
have noise.
I love setting the mood, and like you talked about Night Cage, I played
Yeah.
that once, and we did the exact same thing. We dimmed the lights and put the little electronic candles out,
Yes.
and it was so fun, and it really creeped me out afterwards, and I loved that aspect of it.
Yeah. And I got the pack that came with the candles, and now I've used the candles in other games as well. Right. So I just love being able to set an atmosphere.
Yeah, well, that was basically our question there. What do you do? Do you set the mood when you play spooky games or any games? Go ahead and let us know in the comments below, and we will go ahead and answer that. I'd love to hear what you guys do when you're doing your game night. Because we are talking about spooky things, we're going to move on to our main topic already, which is Horrified. Horrified is a game system, and then also just the Horrified games themselves.
Right.
The Horrified game is published by Ravensburger, and the design team is Prospero Hall. And there are 3 games, now I think 4 games.
Yeah.
Horrified, the base game.
Yep.
Then we have Horrified American Monsters, Horrified Greek Monsters, and then now Horrified World of Monsters, which I think just came out.
Have you played them all?
I've played everything but the newest one that's in Target right now.
Yeah, so I played the first 2 a lot. a fair amount anyway. And the Greek monsters, I'm pretty sure I've only played that one. I don't own that one, but I do want to pick that one up now because from what I understand, if I'm reading correctly, and don't quote me because maybe this isn't quite right, but World of Monsters, you can only incorporate Greek monsters into it. It sounded like because of the icons that are implemented between that version and this one. So that makes me want to pick up that copy now, right? Obviously. So, and the other neat thing that about World that I discovered is that I wasn't, like you and I talked offline, that not super excited about Cthulhu, but now I am because it adds a whole new puzzle element that they haven't done before, which I didn't read too much into it. I didn't want to spoiler. I want to experience it now. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to check that out for sure.
Yeah, I know I read the same thing as you did. I think, we had talked on the notes here. We talk about modularity, and I love games with modularity. And with the World of Monsters expansion, well, not expansion, standalone, I guess, they introduced that you can now use Greek monsters with the World of Monsters. So you could mix and match. And I'm really surprised it took them this long to do that, if I'm being honest, because the game system is so simple that I feel like it'd be pretty easy to mix up monsters with the mini games.
Between the first two, we mix them all the time. So,
oh, really? I wonder how the balance is. Is it still fairly balanced?
We still are about 50-50 on wins versus loses. So, okay. I mean, I've always mixed, and I was just assuming that with Greek, you could do the same, but it sounds like Greek you can only go forward with.
Yes.
So not back. Yep.
Yep. And I think that's totally fine. Like, cause now they have that set system where now going forward, they will just introduce modularity, which is good.
Sure.
It's about time they do that.
Yeah.
So Mark, tell us a little bit about the theme and story of Horrified.
The theme is so fun. In the board game Horrified, players band together to defend a town from the onslaught of classic Universal monsters, such as Dracula, the Wolfman, and the creature from the Black Lagoon. Set in a small, besieged village, players must strategize and collaborate, overcome the unique abilities and terrorizing tactics of each monster, all while racing against time to save the townsfolk. The squishy townsfolk, I must say.
Dun, dun, dun.
And again, if this is definitely a cooperative game, so if you're not really into those, they may steer clear of this one. But I for one, love cooperative games. And I also love games that have a timer or a tick, like high pressure, like the terror track. You're like, oh my gosh, it's getting close to the end. We've got to do something here.
Well, I know you love cooperative games.
I do.
And so I knew right away this was going to be one that you wanted to talk about because it's fully cooperative. And so if you're not into cooperative games, then I still would say try this. It's one of those where it's not like so cooperative where you can't like get helped out with the people around the table.
You're definitely doing your own thing. Your character has its own unique abilities and items that you picked up or whatever. And you all are working against one of 2 to 3 monsters that you put in the game based on the difficulty level you want to deal with. And man, every monster is just so different. So you wouldn't even have to focus on it. You could just focus on the one that appeals to you.
So I need to ask then, what difficulty do you play? Hardest?
Starting out with new players, I always do 2, but from other than that, it's always 3.
We pretty much now always do 3 just because I feel like we'll talk about it a little bit more, but I feel like at the 2, it's a little easy. Like it's very simple, but then once you add that third one, it's like, oh my gosh, now the stress comes in and the terror track comes in a lot more.
Yes.
And it makes it a lot harder to win the game.
Oh my gosh. And especially when you pull a card, because with 2 monsters, you pull that monster card and sometimes their icons don't show up at all. And
and you're
happens.
you're
like, good.
So with this theme, what do you think about the Universal monsters?
From the base game, my favorite was the creature from the Black Lagoon, right? And then the second one, I'm actually really love Bigfoot because super thematic how you have to find puzzle pieces of his photo. You have to uncover him for real. And I just thought thematically that is amazing.
I think what they did mechanically tied really well with the theme in this game. And again, we'll talk about that more, but I think the story overall, the story is very simple, right? You're doing a simple thing where you're protecting these townsfolk from monsters.
And you really are doing we're going to go over the mechanics here. You're doing all these things,
and there's a lot that we're going to be doing. So let's let's dive into the
Yeah,
mechanics, and I'll give a brief overview of the game. Essentially, what you are doing is you're all cooperating to go around this town map, and you're gathering items, and these items will be used for curing certain monster abilities or powers. And each monster has their own unique, basically mini game, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
that you have to
absolutely.
solve.
Their own puzzle to solve.
Yeah,
basically.
and that's one thing I absolutely love in games is
Yes.
mini games. So you have to go around gathering items, cooperating with your opponents, and each of your characters has action points, a set of action points, and you use those to move, go to different places, all those things,
all the things you'd expect, right? And they did a really good job with. I mean, there's even pick up and deliver, like we say here, that you have to take the villager somewhere, right?
Yeah, and then they have their simple combat. So all it is dice rolling. You roll if you roll a hit. I can't remember exactly what it is. But
I can't remember what it is offhand, but yeah, you just roll a hit and so
you
forth,
you die essentially. And
and villagers, like I said, are super squishy. They're just done.
Yeah, but in this game, that always managed to happen where they spawn a villager and then it dies that turn, and just like, oh no, the terror track goes up. And so speaking of the terror track, every time someone dies, the terror track is going to move up 1. And I think if you reach like 8 or something like that, the game is going to end and you guys lose.
Yeah.
So
even you as the player can die, but you're just back the next round.
Yeah, you respawn. Or one of my favorite things in the game is you can spend items essentially to get rid of your death. Yes. So you don't actually die, you just get rid of the items, which stinks because the items in the bag don't they don't get put back in, right?
They don't refresh.
They don't refresh. So that's a little intimidating. But so it's like, do you actually die or do you get rid of your items? Like, it's an interesting push-pull there.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about the mini games for each of these characters. I'm going to go with just the base game because that's what I have in front of me here. And it's so unique because, for example, I have Dracula. I'm looking at Dracula right now, and what you need to do is smash the coffins. And so you have to go to this space with a coffin and it'll always say like spend X something or 6+ of a certain color of item. And then once you go to that space, you spend that color and then you remove the coffin. And then you always put it on the card. So that's like, it's so interesting and so thematic to that character. And then like you were talking about with the Black Lagoon, it's all about moving along this river. And you're going with the boat. You're to find a hidden lair.
I love it so much. Yeah, I still think, even though Dracula is probably the more powerful one there, I still think the creature is the most fun.
Yeah, and I think pick up and deliver is a very underutilized mechanism.
Yeah, it used to be pretty prevalent, right? And now other things have kind of jumped ahead of it, like deck building and so forth. But yeah, pick 'em deliver is very valid. I actually really like pick 'em deliver games that force you to go through a gauntlet, right? You have to move through something terrible to deliver.
Yeah, instead of just, hey, go to point A, point B.
Right.
That's it, right?
Yep.
No, and they do a really good job. I think because of the pick up and deliver, this game makes it to the table a lot better with gateway gamers.
And that's an important point. It does make it to the table, but it used to make it to the table a lot. But now it seems like it's mostly just in October.
Yeah, it's a spooky game, right? This is our spooky game that we bust out, my wife and I. We love cooperative games. And so we get this to the table pretty much on the week of Halloween.
Oh, yeah. This one and Nightcage are the 2 games or go-to for sure in October. So
yeah, so of the games that you've played, of the 3, which one do you like the most?
Oh man, I might be leaning towards the second one just because I just love the thematic nature of
the American Monsters one.
Yeah, American Monsters. Just because I love the thematic nature of Bigfoot and so forth. The Greek gods have some neat monsters, but again, I've only played it once, really.
Okay,
so
yeah,
it's hard to speak to that one. And the new one, it's got like a Yeti, so I'm excited to see what that is.
It's like Cthulhu, but then there's a Yeti.
Yeah, I can't remember what all the others are. There's like maybe a Sphinx.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head.
But yeah, it looks really neat. And if the Yeti is similar to something really thematic like Bigfoot, I'm definitely going to be all about that. The Greek one was fun, but I didn't get that moment of, oh, I need to go buy this now. I was like, yeah, I'll eventually pick this up. So
Yeah, I think if you like the base game of Horrified, you're gonna like the other ones because it's almost the exact same thing, just different mini games. Now, I will say with the American monsters, it did change a little bit more than I thought it would. I actually like the Greek monsters the best
cool.
of all of them. I was not a fan of the American monsters.
Oh.
I don't know if it was not necessarily the theme, but I think the mechanics changed a little bit and it made the game, even I can't remember if it was longer or harder. And our group just didn't really like it as much.
It was harder, and that's probably why I liked it. I felt like, oh, we got to go again.
Yeah, and I think because of the nature of my gaming group, that's probably why I wasn't a fan, because it did make it harder, and which made the game longer, right? And so I need that shorter game system. But
how about the monsters in general, though, for the second one?
What was that?
How about the monsters in general for the second one?
I think they were fine, but I wasn't like super into it. And probably also because a lot of the monsters in that I was never like a fan of, like the American monsters.
Sure.
I love Greek mythology. So I was leaning towards that theme already. And
so
then
in that one, what's your favorite monster then?
Oh, I love just the simple Cerberus. It's
really?
It's just because it's so simple, and you just go to there, you break down the door, and that's like the coolest thing to me. You go to the door and you roll a dice, and if you match the symbols, you break the door by taking it off of the door. Yeah, I just think that's so cool.
That is cool. I agree.
From the base game, my favorite character is definitely the mummy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's hard.
Oh, it is hard. It is, absolutely.
And I think that's why I like it. My wife and I are always like, wait, if we do this, that's incorrect. But now we have to do this again and go back and forth. Yep. So I think that was
super puzzly, which is so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love how in the game you get these, I can't remember, what are they called? The cards that let you do crazy abilities.
Yeah. I can't think of what they're called in the game either, but so annoying.
Perk cards.
Yes, that's it.
You get perk cards, and those cards are so strong, and they let you fully cooperate. So it'll be like things like you move a monster 3 spaces, or you pick up a player and move them to somewhere.
Yeah, I love the move the monster away.
Awesome. Get him away from me. I don't want to die. But so that's pretty much it. What else about the actual gameplay do you like, Mark?
Just that it's easy to teach, I think. So when we do bring someone new in, or someone who hasn't played for a while, which happens, it's just easy to get them up to speed and get rolling really quick. And in general, even the first time we played, it was like, wow, okay, let's just go.
It's very much a gateway system, I think.
Yeah, really is nicely done. So that's probably one of my favorite parts is that, people talk about Ticket to Ride being the gateway game. I don't know. I would rather play this.
Yeah. Yeah, Ticket to Ride is good. We're not saying it's not good.
That's not what I'm saying. That's just, yeah.
I'm gonna make sure everyone knows Mark thinks Ticket to Ride sucks.
Well, no, it's not so much that. It's the fact that when my kids were little, it was kind of overplayed for me. So.
I'm sure. But let's talk about the production and the components of the game, and we'll start with just the base game again. I think they have the miniatures. I know they have little miniatures in the game. What do you think about the minis?
Yeah, they're okay. They're not bad, but they're not great. They're nothing like, oh man, look at those miniatures. Nothing like that. It's like they feel, like a Target game, so to say.
And yes, you can get them all in Target.
Yes, you can. So they're definitely a little on the low end side of miniatures as far as they go, but they still pull off what you're trying to achieve with the game. It's not that at all. It's just, we're so used to super high detailed miniatures these days.
Us in the hobby market, for sure.
Yeah, the hobby. Yeah, for sure. But as far as like the artwork and graphic design, all that is really well done. And the cards are good quality. I don't ever feel like stuff is like cards are too thin or anything like that. So it's just really the miniatures that are kind of the okay part of the game.
When I think about that is you have to think about the retail, right? Like it is going to Target, and the fact that there is miniatures in a game in Target is a big deal.
It is a big deal. Yeah.
So like you said, the miniatures are fine. They're they're nothing crazy. But I do like the standees. I think they're really well done.
They're well done, but I would love to see acrylic standees, an upgrade that you could get. That would be awesome.
I'm sure they're out there. I just haven't looked. But one of the cool mechanisms I forgot to mention is the flame
The flame. Yes.
I don't know what they call it, but
yeah, it's like frenzied.
Oh, frenzy. Yeah. So the frenzied monster, wherever the flame token is on that monster will go probably twice.
Yes.
If you roll that or whatever.
So the monster card, if you don't know the game, at the bottom will have a set of icons that activate the various monsters. And because there's so many monsters in the game, you may come up with a card that only one of them activates or something like that. But when something's frenzied, he might actually activate twice because he has the flame and he's in the game himself. So yeah.
Yeah, for example, so like when you draw a monster card, there's two phases, right? Like there's the player phase and the monster phase. When you draw a monster card, at the top there's a number that lets you get that many items.
Yep.
And then you get to do the ability, but then underneath that it shows you the different monsters that will activate. Essentially, they will move this many spaces towards the closest player.
Closest hero.
And then they will roll damage dice if they're in the same location or whatever.
Yep.
So that's interesting to me, but I actually have a 3D printed insert for my Horrified.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, look at that. That's pretty sweet.
Man,
you can see on YouTube
awesome.
here. But this is I 3D printed this, and this is the first thing, and then my printer broke.
What?
I know. So I haven't even been able to use it. I got one 3D print.
The printer was just horrified.
It was just so scared. But no, I think it needs some sort of insert because it's just there's so many pieces.
Is just kind of thrown in the box for me, which I hate so much.
One thing I really dislike about these retail copies, especially, there's not a lot of storage solutions that are good. But yeah, I think overall I'm pretty pleased with the Target game, with this kind of quality.
It's definitely, as far as the Target games go, in general, it's one on the higher side of that quality. So I would say it's just the miniatures that are okay. Everything else is pretty well done.
Yeah.
So.
And something else that I think is, personally for me, is okay is the art. I think
I love it. It has that old monster school feel of art, And
I think that's probably why I didn't grow up necessarily with Universal Monsters and stuff like that.
Right.
But I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong. It's really interesting, but
it definitely
just
fits the style of what they were going for, right?
Yeah,
so,
I think that's it.
But I understand where you're coming from because we're so used to amazing artwork that it may not fit that quite the criteria.
I do like the Frankenstein and Bride artwork where
that's really good.
He's just over here like, and she's like, what the heck is happening? It's pretty funny. And then the Wolfman to me just looks a little weird. I mean, there's something about his eye.
The Wolfman might be my least favorite monster.
Yeah. Like artwork or just mechanical?
Everything
about it. Wolfman, I'm gonna rip you in half now.
Yep.
You're not used.
We almost never play with the Wolfman.
Oh, that's sad. But I think the graphic design in this game is really well done.
Yes.
That's like the art's fine for me, but I really like the graphics because they had to convey a lot of information in little spaces, especially on these character boards and the monster boards. There's a lot of information, but they do a really good job with that. So I'm pretty happy with how the game plays from that side of things.
Me too.
So overall, we like that, but the culture and community behind Ravensburger and then this game system, people have loved Horrified from the beginning.
Yep.
And it gets really good ratings. And I know with the World of Monsters, the one that's coming out or is out now as we're recording this, the community specifically asked for modularity. Right. And I know Ravensburger went to the drawing board and they're like, hey, let's make this happen for the people.
Yeah.
And they made it happen.
I just thought it was already that way.
Same. But I guess it wasn't, And so it's really cool. And I think it's about, like I said earlier, it's about time they did that. I want to see more modularity in gaming. And I think that's where gaming trends are going with the launch of, Dice Throne and how everything's so modular now, unmatched and stuff like that. So I think this is good.
The other side of the community aspect is the fact that, and I haven't dove into it deep enough to really know what's going on, but just enough to go, wow, that's cool. So there's a ton of homebrew stuff to add to the game. People are doing all kinds of amazing things to add other monsters and various items and things to the game. So I think that's really cool.
See, that's something I didn't even know about. So
I just discovered this yesterday, the day before. I'm like, I had
homebrew Horrified. Okay.
All kinds of stuff.
That's really cool. Yeah, I didn't even think about like a game system like this would be a good community homebrew, but I guess any game like this, you can just make your own.
Yep.
If you're a
Make
good
your
enough
own.
designer, make sure it's balanced out there,
Yeah.
designers.
Well, who knows? But I think that's just super fun that people are diving into that deep,
Right. So let's talk about who this game is for and who this game might not be for. I know we mentioned earlier, if you're not into cooperative, this is not the game for you.
Yeah, probably not. Maybe. I mean, it's worth trying at least to see if it still works for you, because you do get to do things on your turn. You don't have to, well, if I do this, you do that. I mean, there might be some of that, but it's definitely more independent, that you move around and, try to avoid the monster or go pick up items, whatever it might be that you're doing on your turn. So there's definitely some individual things going on. So if you're not into cooperative games, it's still worth trying, I suspect. But yeah, it truly is a cooperative game, though, so keep that in mind.
And I would like to say, probably with this, you definitely can go into it with, like, if you're not into a cooperative nature, you can go into it being like, oh, I'm going to do my own thing. But there very much are times where you're like, your people are going to be like, hey, you can't go into that area because this monster's going to go there.
Don't Leroy Jenkins.
Please don't do that. And then if you're just like that person that just does it, your friends are not going to be friends anymore.
Right. I do have to admit, though, that in cooperative games, when I play and someone is trying to direct everyone, I will go do silly things like that on purpose, because I am not going to be directed.
What do they call that? Alpha gamer, right?
Alpha gamer,
that's what they call it.
Yeah.
That's a big problem with cooperative games.
It is.
And that's one of the design things you have to think about as a designer is, how do you get over the alpha gamer system? Because it's just so difficult to do.
As a player, I go and make things even more difficult, because I'm like, okay, fine. If you want me, I'm going to do this.
Your Mark's over here like, hey, play the perk card, move this character. You move the alpha gamer into the monster space.
Into the monster space. I'm serious. I do not like that in cooperative games. Everyone should have an equal say.
Yeah, I agree. So this is a game for those who really enjoy cooperative. Also, if you like Universal Monsters, even if you're into that theme, this is a really good gateway system for you.
Especially if you're like a fan of the old movies from the 50s and 40s. It's got that flavor to
nostalgia.
It. Nostalgia.
It has nostalgia vibes.
Huge nostalgia vibe. Yep.
And of course, now they're going into different types of monsters, like American, Greek. I'm sure there's going to be, Egyptian or something down the road.
That would be awesome.
I can't wait for that.
So many different paths you could take. I mean, there could be dragons and all kinds of stuff, right?
Ooh,
So
dragons, horrified.
Right? That would be pretty awesome.
Be sweet. Yep. Maybe let's just do birds first, and then we'll do dragons.
Just kind birds.
Just kind birds. Horrifyingly kind birds.
Horrified. Well, you go to the town where the birds took place, the movie.
Oh no. We're not going to get into that in this podcast. Overall, if you were to give just like an initial rating around your game plays, what would you give it? I'm curious.
It was definitely high on the list until kind of like Dark Tower.
Dark Tower,
right,
of course.
So, but it's still an easy 7 or 8 for me, because we've just had so many fun plays with it, and it definitely is the game that dominates. In the month of October.
I'm in the same exact boat. I usually gave this around a 7 to 7.5. It's a system I really like. But it's not one I'm always asking. Like, it's my family and I love this game. Dark Tower, if we had that, I'm sure I would like that more, because there's more complexity added to it.
More complexity, yeah.
But this is a great game for gamers and non-gamers alike, I think, to get them into.
Like you said, this is the interesting thing, is when we talked about it again, that it was like, Cthulhu, I don't know. But then after reading about it,
there's more to it.
I want to play this now. So yeah, I'm definitely going to go look for it at Target and try to pick it up soon.
I know there's so many things you can do with this system. And so I'm really excited about the system going forward.
Yeah, that too, for sure. But I now really want to see these new monsters.
Yeah. Like, there's so many monsters in the world that you could just add into this. Like you said, dragons. Like, come on. There's a lot to go with it. So I'm excited to see.
Even Horrified could set up their own world with their own monsters even.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be something really cool too. I mean, you could just go do some really neat things with that. So,
in the world of Horrified,
yes,
that's like games like Earth. In the world of Earth,
it takes place in the void between the other Horrified games.
That's great. Well, Ravensburger, keep coming out with amazing Horrified games.
Yes.
Mark and I both enjoy this, so
very much.
We would recommend going to check it out if you're into those kind of things. Mark, what time is it now?
Oh, it is time for the Beyond.
I love this segment because
Me
we
too.
get to talk about something outside, usually, of the board game industry or something we're really excited about. You recently watched Deadpool and Wolverine.
Just, at the time of recording, it was just last night that I watched it, but by the time this airs, it'll be a little bit after. So I will still not spoil anything, though, because
Please don't.
There's so much stuff in this movie that you just want to see for the first time. You just want to experience it. That it's just like, what?
Did it surpass expectations, or was it at expectations?
It surpassed for me.
Really?
I had pretty
Okay.
high expectations. It finally, the only thing I will say is that, it took 20 years for us to finally get the Wolverine that we should have gotten.
Yes.
long ago.
Okay. That makes me so excited. Yeah. I don't get to go to a lot of movie theaters anymore. So it's like, I really want to go see it, but I'm going to have to wait until it comes out. And
in true Deadpool fashion, it is well deserving of its R rating.
Okay.
So keep that in mind as well when you go to see this movie. So very violent, very lewd in so many places. So be prepared.
I love their chemistry.
Yes,
they're like the best duo chemistry wise I have ever seen, and watching their interviews is hilarious.
Yeah, I'm gonna go watch today the Hot Ones. They did the Hot Wing Challenge thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
I can't wait to watch that one. So they're just obviously you can tell that they've been friends for a long time, which is really really cool. So
awesome.
Yep. So anyway, fantastic. Went way above my expectations. I would even say it's a 9.5 or even a 10.
Wow.
It might be one of the very, very best Marvel movies ever.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah. Well, we've been hitting a lot of interesting low points with Marvel movies. So I'm hoping that, it sounds like this is where it should be. So I mean, it's Deadpool. Like the first Deadpool was amazing.
And
the
all
second
the fourth,
Deadpool, right?
All the fourth wall stuff. And there's some really next level fourth wall stuff too. So
it's so funny when I first watched that film, I was like, wait, what is happening right now? Because I used to work in film. I was a filmmaker before working in board games, and so I'm like, is he talking to me? Are they fourth walling it right now?
Yes,
so cool. But awesome. Well, I cannot wait to see that movie. I love Marvel and I love Deadpool and Wolverine. And of course, the X-Men.
Maybe we'll have to do a whole episode about it.
Oh, we might have to. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I am going to talk about something that I love hyping other people's products and projects. And this is something that they do every year. And I think this is 4th or 5th year or something now, of the AbCon. It's the African Board Game Convention. And
it sounds amazing.
This is so cool because it's like, you wouldn't think this would be able to be possible, but what they're doing with this and the amount of support from the community has made it so they can run this convention in Africa. And it's so cool. And I have a little bit of what they are. So I'm going to go ahead and read this off here. So, termed as the first board game convention in sub-Sahara Africa by the Nigerian Television Authority, the African Board Games Convention, or AbCon is what they call it. It's the largest and oldest gathering of tabletop games lovers, enthusiasts, designers, publishers, and manufacturers in sub-Saharan Africa. AbCon aims to introduce people to the beautiful experience of tabletop games, the joy of being in a convention, meeting people of like minds, and yes, playing, talking, and pitching tabletop games. So it's so cool that we now can get conventions not just here in the Americas, but international, right? Like I love seeing conventions popping up and being able to happen. Getting more people into our hobby is why we do this, right?
Yep. I think it's super cool. I would love to go one day. It would be amazing.
That would be, if I could afford that, I would
totally
go down there.
I would be all about it. It just sounds so cool.
But I know they recently, when this airs, their Kickstarter is probably going to be over, but I just want to shine a little support on that because I think what they're doing is just a great thing for the hobby as a whole. And I cannot wait to see how much further they can go 6, 7, 8, 12 years from now where they're going to be at. So that is the African Board Game Convention, or AbCon. Awesome. Well, that is going to conclude our episode today. A little bit of a shorter one, but that's totally fine.
Totally fine.
If you liked what you heard, or if you want to learn more about Horrified, you can subscribe to the channel or hit that bell notification icon to be notified when we release new videos. You can follow our show at Roll and Reflect and at Roll and Reflect Podcast Thank you to Bryce and Jessica for our reflection question today that we want you to answer. Laura for the timestamps. And of course, all of you high rollers out there, thank you for listening. We couldn't do this without you, and we hope you are enjoying the show. So, Mark, until next time, may your games be legendary.
And your rolls be epic.
Ooh.